Hey guys, I hope you had a good weekend. I'm going to be wrapping up this weekend by bringing you a video of a siege I had with a couple other players. We decided to do 3 Romans against 3 other defenders. The defenders are going to be the Seleucids, Macedon, and then the oh god, I think it's a Caesar and Gaul type of faction from the north. I think it's the Britons. I can't remember exactly. Not the Britons, but the other guys. Anyways, the siege is going to be underway, and it was pretty cool. The guys I talked to were very nice. They were into doing some sort of different types of battles. Now, I had to leave before we could join up and do more, but what they were talking about is maybe getting back together to do some battles where it would be like, because we're all 3 of us Romans, and some of them knew about Roman military tactics, I might be able to meet up with some of these guys again and recreate some battles using Romans, fighting together. So we might be able to recreate, if we can get 4 of us together, the typical consular army, which would be very cool to do that, especially fight in formation with other people who know sort of what they're talking about. Anyways, this is going to be a siege, and the defenders are clumped up here in the middle. It's going to be a very juicy target for our artillery to come in. You can see the cinematics of this are very spectacular. Now, if I were these guys, I would probably try and sally forth as you'd see defenders do historically. You really wouldn't see them sit inside their settlement like this. They would try and foray outwards and skirmish with the opposing army. But then again, this isn't your typical city with a wall. This is going to be its own city that is just open. So, maybe in this case, it's sensible to hide on the inside. But what I'm going to be doing is positioning my guys around the flanks. I decided to bring a lot of skirmisher units because I knew, I could mass a bunch of infantry, but I'd rather just shoot these guys who are already pigeoned up in a small position right there. And Crippled Teddy Bear, I think, had said he knew my channel, so that was pretty cool. And yeah, he's going to be the one complaining about all the artillery coming inwards. But I mean, I guess that's what you should guess would be coming in towards you anyways if you're going to be playing one of these battles. Anyways, the defenders seem to be making an outing around back with chariots, elephants, and that's something you should be careful of. Is the Seleucids are definitely a big wrecking ball, and they can be very troublesome. So I'm going to be moving my forces up here, and the Macedonians have put a pretty significant pike formation right there, so I'm going to be moving forward, and we're going to have to just try and decimate that and move forward. Something I wanted to mention also with the latest patch is, this patch is definitely good, it's improved some things, but something I've found and a lot of people have found online is skirmishers seem to be much more beefy than they were otherwise. I've played a lot of armies, and it seems to be that people are tending to use a lot of skirmishers now. I even saw some Romans just using 4 or 5 Roman troops spread out extremely wide just to hold up any charges, and then they fill their back ranks with like 7 slingers and a bunch of other heavy cav and stuff like that. So the reason behind that is the slingers and skirmishers are actually, they do a lot of damage. They can pick apart heavy infantry very well, and with the new cost changes, it's turned out that actually skirmishers are way more cost effective than they used to be, plus they do more damage. And on top of that, some of the mechanisms that happen is actually that even though when cavalry charge skirmishers, I found that they get caught up on them a lot more, and skirmishers can actually hold up a lot better in conflict. So you'll find, whereas before, and take a look at this, that's very, very cool. Tons of arrows and slings coming out and decimating this force right here. So I'm going to be picking these guys apart on their unshielded side, targeting it from the side, obviously without shields in order to do more damage. But you can see with the trees and the market stalls, they're having a little bit more cover than they otherwise would. So pretty good placement of these forces. Anyways, what was I trying to say? Oh yeah, skirmishers tend to have a lot more staying power, even by cavalry. Usually you could run them down because they're in loose formation, and cavalry would just churn through them. But now you find that cavalry gets stuck up on them, which is a problem, because then cavalry gets stuck up on the first of the skirmishers. All the other skirmishers turn around and just unleash volleys and volleys on them and just decimate them. So, I mean, take a look at this. I have 4 units taking out one of his pikemen. I think this is a reasonable rate of kill for so many skirmishers targeting one troop. But if this were on an open battlefield, he would be taking many, many more losses than he is right now. So that's something they definitely need to fix. You can see here we're going to have a pretty mass conflict on this side, an outing coming here. So I'm going to decide to reform and stick my skirmishers right in this little nook here. And we're going to set up a nice little concave attack right there. I'm going to draw them in. So here you can see I'm picking apart the defenders right there. I think that was even his general unit, so that was definitely beneficial for me to do that. And yeah, I've got my siege artillery. Told them to halt fire because I'm saving that, just in case a more juicy opportunity presents itself. I could keep firing, but I figure, if the elephants decide to come my way, I can tell my units to turn around. And look at this, the rain of missiles just coming in and slaughtering these guys as they move around. Something you'll also find is when you turn your backs on the opponents, usually before you could run away pretty quickly, but I found that heavy infantry, they seem to be slower nowadays, and it's really hard to get up to skirmishers because they're light troops. They can run away faster than your infantry, and if you decide to give up and turn around, they'll just turn around and massacre you. So there's really no way to tackle those guys effectively. You could say that bring cavalry, but as I said, cavalry tend to get stuck on the first couple units, and it tends to be a problem. They're not as effective as running them down as they should be. And take a look at this, very, very cool. I always love the animation of these archers and the fact that every single arrow is modeled on in this what do you call it? It is modeled in this engine. That's what I meant to say. Yeah, so you can actually trace every arrow as it moves around. You can trace every slinger's bolt. So very cool. And here you can see he retreated back, so that's when I'm going to fire with my artillery once more. My opponent has not decided to go through this death hold right there, so I'm going to move my skirmishers over to the side to shoot at the impending charge coming down the middle. I'm going to decide to charge his noble cav. Hopefully some pillar that I throw will be able to do significant damage to those guys. Looks like it will be able to stop them in their tracks, keep them from flanking. So, one of those units is going to get around, and my general is going to make a noble stand. This could be very, very problematic because look at this. He has open access to all my units right here. So my general is going to come and do the noble thing and try and suppress those guys before they can move in. Take a look at this horde of barbarians of Oathsworn starting to move in. I'm going to move my legionnaires around that rock and just charge them. And look at this formation on the bottom that's going to try flanking me. Ooh, they're going to get slaughtered. That's why I'm going to target them on the sides. And my general and my infantry are going to hold up. I'm going to move some infantry back here just to support. And look at the background. The Seleucids are laying into one of our Roman allies. Here I'm getting around the flank. Looks like the Oathsworn are going to be charging. So I'm going to charge one of my guys and try and move the other one around the flank. Make sure he doesn't get engaged right away. And here the opponent seems to be throwing everything into the flanks. And now he's going to start his approach on the center. I'm going to go ahead and use Caesar's presence to rally my forces because I know there's going to be a pretty big battle incoming right now. All the skirmishers are just laying into my legionnaires. Now that's not the best use of them because Roman infantry tend to have very, very good bonuses with their large shields and armor, so that's not going to do too much damage. So maybe he should be targeting my slingers or my skirmishers instead, my archers. And he's just going to pile in with all his infantry right there. Maybe not the best choice because he has more in numbers, so he should instead try and surround my guys. And you can see here I'm going to be making the surround of his troops. And any of his guys that get into a blob, I'm going to use my skirmishers to just hit them from the side, which I would recommend my opponent should do. Looks like he's going to start moving his cavalry into my archers. That's going to be problematic, but take a look at this. My archers are just going to be flinging tons and tons of arrows into them. He's still going to get into the mass of skirmishers, but take a look at this. You'll see that they do just they stop amidst all the skirmishers and really don't do as much damage as you think they would. And my skirmishers there are going to be doing the finishing up blows on his infantry blob here. And the Macedonians seem to be wanting to sally forth because they've been taking too much withering fire from all my troops and my incoming, archers, slingers, and then the additional siege engines that I set in the back to attack them. So they're going to be sallying forward. It's a pretty good idea, although he is sending forth his Cretan archers while I have a lot of slingers that do good in close up. So I should be getting the best of that. And I'm also using focus fire on some of his troops. That's something I would recommend you do. You could either disperse your fire onto multiple units and do the same amount of damage to every unit, but what I would recommend you do is concentrate fire on individual units. Focus on wiping them out because it means they will crack and break, and they'll usually break before they have lost all their troops, whereas if you attack each group piecemeal, then it'll take a while for them to break, and overall they'll have more men standing throughout the fight. So if you focus on one group, you can just annihilate them. Also, if you get them to rout, it'll do a morale penalty on the rest of the troops, and they'll break as well pretty soon. Now over here you can see I cleaned up the cavalry on the flanks. The Roman infantry as of this patch seem to be very, very powerful, especially in combination with the Velites and the Syrian archers. Definitely very powerful forces to be reckoned with, and it's a shame because the barbarians tend not to be able to do much against this. they're usually outclassed by the Roman infantry, and you know, they do have their own skirmishers, but Rome can definitely tackle their skirmishers with her own troops. And here, Roman infantry in formation, just finishing up his troops. I don't want to waste too much of my archer fire, so I'm going to move them back over there. And yeah, it's going to be a mopping up operation here. Macedonians here are not going to hold up much, so it's going to be down to their phalanx in the central capture point. The rest of the allies seem to be just getting absolutely demolished. Look at our legions in the back. They're going to be finishing off those forces there. Mike Hugh decides to exit the battle. He's the opponent that I was fighting, so you know, he was just about done. So I can accept him pulling out at that point. And yeah, you can see the crippled bear is just saying oh my about what's going on, because it was definitely a very hectic battlefield. Even just on my side, there's a lot of casualties, a lot of shit going down. And I didn't really get too much of a chance to zoom into what was going on the backside of the battlefield, but you can look at that. The Seleucids are coming in. Pretty much he's holding off 2 of the Roman legions. It's a shame the Macedonians didn't go out and help them, because the Seleucids were definitely kicking ass over there. But just due to the sheer numbers of the Romans and the artillery present, they were finally slowed down and ground to a halt. So here I'm going to be cleaning up my side of the battlefield, and we're going to be sweeping through the backside. This is going to be a turning point of the battle, obviously, because when I can eliminate an entire army, that just opens up the back flank. So you can see the Macedonians in the center are going to start repositioning on one of the sides. They're going to want to hold up that flank, but at the same time, I've been able to just completely rout his skirmishers here. So I'm going to move into this plaza here, this marketplace drenched with the missiles and dead and just all sorts of chaos in here. I'm going to move forward and secure that, and you can see how the Romans are pushing through. They're going to be facing the Macedonian pike. Now they will probably die unless I can get my own troops around the back, so that's exactly why I'm going to be moving in all haste with these forces around here. And yeah, look over here. I'm going to take a look at the formations here. Pikes are holding up pretty well against the Romans, although just the sheer number of them, as I said, is just going to be overpowering, especially with all these archers just laying into it. You know, you'll probably have a lot of friendly fire here, but with the numbers that the Romans are able to field, it's not going to really matter. Elephants are still doing tons and tons of damage. Look at this, just wrecking the Romans, but the battle has largely been determined. Over here, the pikemen are going to be charging out of formation, not a very good move, and I'm going to go ahead and target those forces back there that are presenting a very, very juicy target for my my archers. They're going to just tear into the backs of those Macedonians. We're going to go ahead and zoom in on the effect of that. Some of the overshots, though, are going to go ahead and kill some of the legionnaires, so we'll see a little bit of that. But most importantly, you know, it's going to be hitting these guys in the backs exactly as the Romans need it. But take a look at this. You'll see every once in a while some of the Roman allies get hit. I think one of them is going to die. Yep, there you go. Some of them are going to get hit by this volley. Take a look. Yeah, I seem to have killed a couple of my men, or my allies' men. But, you know, that's what they get. At least it's doing equal amounts of damage on both sides, and we have more men. So in the end, that means we win. Also, another thing about the up damage of the skirmishers mean that, look at these guys, the barbarians usually tend to be relatively unarmored, so they're pretty susceptible to the attacks by archers. So that's something that definitely needs to be fixed. So here we go. We're going to be moving around this flank here. I just want to mention, I really love these 3v3 battles, especially when the allies are wanting to play as, you know, Romans playing historically. Now in this battle we weren't really able to field them in combination. It was mostly fighting everyone on their own side of the town. So what I'll try to do next time is try and bring like an open field battle where we can really operate as legions, and maybe even do like reinforcements, like as triplex axes between 3 of our armies. That would be really cool. So I'm hoping to do that. We kind of had that going on when we did a follow-up battle with this. It was 3 Romans against, we switched up the teams against 3 other troops. So I was Parthia, and I had Parthian cavalry tactics. I had huge, and we did large armies, so everyone had like 20 units. It was a massive battle. However, the lag was pretty significant, so I wasn't able to bring that to you guys. Hopefully, you know, we can get some allies in there who can handle that kind of drain on their computer. But in any case, it was very cool. I'll try and bring that to you again next time. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this battle for the time being. It's a lot of chaos, and I'm basically sweeping through here. Very glad that I brought my auxiliary troops. Syrian archers are just laying into all the opponents. And you can see I've expended almost all of my my missiles. All my artillery groups have fired all their shots. My velites, I've pretty much exhausted all their shots. Slingers are mostly done, but then we still have some Syrian archers. Just goes to show how many, you know, how much ammo those guys have. Anyways, the Roman troops are coming into the center of the settlement. It's only a matter of time before we break through and just secure this area. Now, the one thing that's going for the troops, the defenders here, is they are pretty fresh and they're fighting against some tired Romans. Now, that would turn the tide eventually, but you know, with this kind of army right here in support, yeah, that's not gonna do, not gonna be very good for our opponents. Really love, as I said, the animations of these guys. It looks very epic. It almost reminds me of that scene in the third Lord of the Rings where the cavalry charge out and then you just see all the orcs firing at once at them. Very, very epic scene, and you know, I was always thinking of recreating that somehow. Hopefully, I think they are working on a Lord of the Rings mod for Rome 2. It's a long way off and there's a lot of issues with if they can even do it legally. Because obviously they don't hold the rights to the Lord of the Rings franchise and all that. But hopefully, I hope they'll be able to bring that to life, and then we can have some really sick Lord of the Rings battles with the Rome 2 engine and graphics. That would look unbelievably cool. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you guys enjoyed me kind of rambling about the battlefield. It wasn't super tactical. It was mostly a slog fest. You can see here the kills. I definitely got most of our team's kills. And yeah, a lot of it came down to the archers and the look at the slingers and especially the siege engines, 338, 345. So definitely a fun battle, very cool, and I look forward to more of these in the future. See you guys.